All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, June 1st, 2020, and I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a Google certified trainer and educator, as well as a gold product expert for the Google for Education team and a technology teacher. And today I have on the show Mr. Abid Patel. Yay! He's from the UK. Abid comes to us as the IT director at the leading Learn and Trust in London and has been working in EdTech for over 15 years. He is also a Google certified trainer and innovator and graduated from the London Academy in 2019. Abid is also the leader of the GEG group, the Google Educator Group UK, and is a founding member of the Global GEG. Woohoo! We were just talking about that. Abid was a runner-up in the EduFuturist Network Manager of the Year Award and also named in the 2020 EdTech 50s ones to note. Got to keep that in mind. So he's a very passionate person about EdTech and transforming schools into using technology. And he was described by one of his fellow innovators as a natural positive force and dreamer with 10x ideas. So welcome to the show, Abid.
Thank you, Kim. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here because, we were chatting before we went on live and we're going to continue that conversation about, GEG and our PLN and stuff. But initially when you had, you reserved your spot on my show months ago, it was interesting to have you on because you are the person in the school system that's basically the IT director, the tech department, the person that really controls like all the policies and network and devices and, oversees a lot of that back end stuff that educators don't really care about because all they care about is just wanting it to work. So I was really interested in hearing how you transformed all of that into GSuite. So that's a big accomplishment. That's huge.
It definitely has been a journey full of ups and downs, actually. Quite the story to tell, and I'll try to condense it into half an hour for you. But I'm pretty sure there is someone who's told me to write an autobiography, and I've tried starting up a blog as well. So I have got a blog of my own, which I really need to keep up to date with. But I just want to inspire more people to sort of do the same, really. Because it's something that I am really, really passionate about, and my entire Google Innovative project is based around digital transformation and why it's so important in schools.
So what was one of the driving factors that made you transform to GSuite? So what did you have, and then obviously you went to GSuite?
Yeah, so when I took over at my most recent school, the one that I work at now, where I'm the IT director. So I'm the IT director for a multi-academy trust of schools. So that's like the equivalent of districts in the USA. And we were a single school at the time when I took over 6 years ago, in April 2014. And I'd come from working 10 years in a secondary, in a high school environment as the IT technician there. And we had a very, very traditional setup, the old server and your PCs and generally what you found in the business environment, because that was what school networks were. There was very little difference between school networks and small business networks. They were all based on the same inherent base foundation software of Microsoft Windows Server with Microsoft Windows PCs. You have all of your server and your documents on premise within the school, and it's the traditional setup that we'd all kind of grown up with. If you're a child of the 80s and 90s, then you'll be more than familiar with the personal computer revolution that we kind of grew up with. And coming from the high school background, where we had IT teams. So there was myself as the network technician, and I had a network manager. And then afterwards, I got transferred over to a large national third party, and there was a heavy emphasis on the importance of IT in secondary high schools, and basically ensuring that things were up, regularly kept upkeep and ticking over and working. And so I had the opportunity to join my current school, which is Selwyn Primary School in London, as the network manager. So it was a promotion for me. So I decided to take that job, and it was a baptism by fire, I would say, because primary schools, so that's the equivalent of the elementary schools, is they had never historically had technical teams looking after the IT networks in schools. And so I'd walked into an environment where almost nothing worked. Absolutely nothing worked. I would walk into school and I would say, "Hi, I'm Abid. I'm the new IT manager. I'm here to look at any problems you've got with IT. Is everything okay? Is there anything that you're worried about? Is there anything that's not working?" And the teacher would look at me and say, "Oh yeah, no, don't worry about it. Everything's fine." And I'm looking at a PC that's got a blue screen of death on it.
Oh no!
I'd be like, "What about that PC over there?" And they turn around and say, "Oh yeah, but that's never worked. Don't worry about it." Yeah. I'm like, no, that's my job to worry about it. And then they were kind of taken aback, say, "Wait a minute, who are you?" I'm like, I'm Abid. I'm the new network manager.
They didn't have that kind of relationship before.
Yeah, because they had probably a guy who came in one day a week to address issues, and he was so inundated with firefighting that there was never any time to be proactive or any chance to sort of ensure that issues didn't happen.
Right. Well, you can't do, you can't do everything, and that's one thing that I witnessed, myself, because, I have my own computer repairs business. So I kind of have a lot of techie background, and as far as like fixing computers and stuff, and there's no way that you can keep up with it. You can't keep ahead of it. If you don't have the support and the manpower, there's never a proactive approach to it. And it's difficult. And that's where schools lack in. They don't have a heavy end tech department. And it's hard when you walk into an environment that way and nothing's working, you become overwhelmed yourself. And I couldn't even imagine like that. That must have been an eye opener for you.
In a way, yes, it was, because I didn't expect things to be that bad.
Yeah.
At the same time, I did expect it in a way, because it was a case of, there's never been, or there historically wasn't a understanding of how important IT is in schools. Now, the way I try to make school leaders understand is, I would say, let's go to a leadership meeting and you're happy to sit there and talk about teaching and learning because that's what schools are about. And you're happy to talk about finance because money makes the world go around. Without the finance, we can't buy the resources and things that we do need to do to deliver the teaching and learning. Let's talk about inspectors, Ofsted inspectors, Her Majesty's inspectors. We need to ensure that we're doing the right thing so that they give us a good grading and don't shut the school down. When it comes to, let's talk about safeguarding, because safeguarding is immensely important. When it comes to IT, oh no, you know what? It's been a long meeting, and I don't even understand any of the IT. And you know what? Let's talk about this next time. Yet, what you fail to realize is all of your teaching and learning resources sit on a PC or a server somewhere.
I was
Your
just
system
going to say that. Yeah.
is in the cloud. Your safeguarding system is on a website somewhere that you report safeguarding concerns. The Her Majesty's inspectors need to have access to the resources. So if your IT breaks down, none of that can happen. So why are you suddenly not paying attention to one of the most potentially detrimental issues that could bring your organization down? And it was trying to make schools understand that this is something serious that we need to consider. And so that's why that's kind of how I started in the digital transformation at that point was way off, way off. We had to go back to basics here. It's like you have to understand the why. Like, why do we even have computers? Why are we using them? Why are we so concerned about this little tin box in the corner there, where if that goes down, it'll bring to our entire organization to a grinding halt? Why do we need to worry about it?
So you actually had to take that mindset and talk to them in that way so that they understood the importance of your infrastructure, really.
Absolutely, because no one understood the infrastructure.
That's crazy. Like, I can't wrap my head around that. That's just, I mean, how long ago did you do this?
This was the journey started in 2014, so 6 years ago now.
So in 2014, like, we're digital, we're heavy in tech, and they were still that far behind. That's just amazing how they can function that way for those many years in an environment that way. And they just got lucky. They got lucky.
I mean, with
that's crazy.
With respect to schools, sometimes, I mean, it's like, for example, what do we do at home? When we want to use our devices, when we want to use the microwave or the toaster or whatever, we plug the device in. We don't think about how the electricity works.
Well, because we all expect it to work.
Exactly. And that's the expectation of the IT. And I say IT, and you have to remember, IT teams in schools, especially in the UK, is a very lonely position. I say teams that up until 2017, I was a one-man band for the majority of my career. And it's a case of, it's that guy who sits in the dark corner and all he does is Facebook all day long. We don't know what he does, and we don't know, but somehow, he comes in, it doesn't work, and he switches it on and off again, and suddenly it starts working. And he's the only guy who understands it, so we kind of need him here, sort of thing. And it's how to get over that barrier, because when you get into a position of a network, of an IT leader, and suddenly you have to go to your school leaders and you have to justify why you want to pay £20,000 to buy a new Wi-Fi infrastructure, and they don't know what Wi-Fi is. Then how are you going to justify that £20,000? No one in their right mind is going to say, going to give you £20,000 when they don't know what that £20,000 is going to do.
Right.
And so it literally is about bringing it right down to the basics, and making people understand, helping the leaders to understand the why, and why the importance is there, and how we need to ensure that our foundations are built on a solid IT infrastructure that will allow us to thrive, that will allow our teaching and learning to benefit, that will allow our children to get the best possible start to their digital lives, because we live in the 21st century. We are surrounded by, devices. Most of us carry a $1,000 device in our pockets. A supercomputer.
Yeah.
And so, it's that was the first barrier that we had to get over. And then when you win over the leadership teams by making them understand why the importance is there, then you start to talk about the transformation as to, right, I'm proposing change, and I'm proposing change in a way that will benefit you, but it's going to be painful. And the reason why it's going to be painful is because you've been historically held back for so long because of the lack of understanding and also the fear of change. And so it brings me back. There's a couple of quotes that I always say is, change is hard, but not changing is fatal.
That's so accurate.
And it's so important to understand that learning and innovation go hand in hand. And I love this one because it hits hard. The arrogance of success is to think that what you did yesterday will be sufficient for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Because that's because that's outdated by tomorrow.
and that's the thing is my industry, IT, changes every single day. I mean, every device we purchase now will come with a maximum 3-year shelf life.
Right.
And even then, Apple released a new iPhone every single year.
Yeah. It's hard to keep up with it.
That's it. And that's it's a £1,200 device every single year. That's not easy for consumers to keep up with. But at the same time, they need to have a return on their investment. And the investment isn't just the tools and the bits and bobs that they put together. No, it's the discussions they've had around the table. It's the research and development. It's all of the future planning. It's all of the services that go behind it. It's all of that time as well. And that's why it's really, really important to understand and make schools understand that we have to have a sort of business approach when it comes to infrastructure and IT and systems and services. And I'm not in any way saying that business approach has to apply to teaching and learning. No, teaching and learning is always going to be about the children and the staff and the well-being and all of that put together. That's always going to be number one. But you have to remember as well that at the end of the day, if you live 20 miles away from work and there's no public transport to get to your place, then you need a car. And you will understand the importance of having that car working in a reasonable fashion that will enable you to get from home to work and back again.
That. Wow. Like it just blows my mind that was only in 6 years ago. Like in today's world with our society so heavy in technology and dependent on technology in schools, like my school is so heavily dependent on using, GSuite and devices and having fast access to the Wi-Fi and no downtime. I just can't believe that 6 years ago really isn't that long ago for them to do a transformation like that. I can't believe that, well, it's good that they finally did, but I would have thought that they would have did that like many, many years ago, so it's hard. Like, my school district has an infrastructure and, we were, last year we got hacked, and it was unfortunate, and, it's all based on your infrastructure. So they I don't know how they got in, but they got in and hacked the system and it was horrible. Like we weren't able to use our computers and the kids couldn't use their Chromebooks. Everything had to be, all our passwords had to be changed. From the students and the teachers on everything. And it was a big mess. It was weeks until we were able to get back on. And if your infrastructure is weak, those are the kind of vulnerabilities that get exposed, and that's not, and you're talking about student data and confidential data and, payroll, things like that, and it's just one thing leads to another. It's just so important,
It's funny you mentioned that because my digital transformation journey started after we had a flood in
I saw your video
in the server room. and it's an absolutely true story. We had a freak torrential downpour in the middle of May 2016 or 2017, and we had that particular school was a very old school building, which had leakage issues, and lo and behold, the server room got flooded, and the server was under 5 inches of water.
Oh my goodness!
And it died.
Yeah.
That was it. And I reached out to third parties, and there was a third party who had provided that server, and I'd asked them, how much are you going to charge to fix this? And they turned around and said £25,000.
Wow. And how much is that in American dollars?
Maybe if I inflate it, let's say about between 28, 29 to $30,000, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I could be totally wrong, but it's somewhere up in that region. But yeah, it's no minor feat. And, schools would turn around, and at that point, schools would turn around and say, we've got no choice. We have to pay this.
Right.
We have no idea what, and yet we can't teach without all of our stuff because it's in that
little room
in that we've never paid any attention to.
Yeah.
And that's where the importance of transformation comes in. And it's ironic that I at that point I transferred everything into GSuite for Education and moved all of our documents and data into Google Drive, and I fixed things up and patched up the stuff that was in so we could still get our Windows network running and things like that. And ironically, exactly a year later, we had the same flood in the same server room. Of course, the server wasn't on the floor anymore, and nothing was affected.
Yeah,
but I had the school leaders running to me in shock horror, saying, "Have we lost anything?" And I'm like, "No, it's in the cloud."
Yeah.
And this is the method to the madness. I like to say, this is why I've been, hitting you hard with change that you're not comfortable with. This is why I've been hitting you hard with the things that you've been reluctant to do, but this is now, and so much so no one could have predicted COVID, but
right.
The fact of the matter is it's happened, and yet we're now able to work from home. We're now able to teach from home because we've got all of these systems and services in place.
And I was just going to say that, thank God, you did all that, because could you imagine if you were on your old system and then this happened? There would be no teaching online. They would be doing, paper packets. It's, we are so heavily reliable on technology, and it all starts from the top, right? So if your administration and everybody supports the tech, and you have a good IT director or coordinator, which they usually very knowledgeable and very helpful, they're going to guide you, and they're going to let you, make your decisions and do whatever you need to do to make the infrastructure or the tools, better for education, better for the teachers, better for the students, because that's what it's all about. We're all on the same team, and it's all about, the students and educating them. So without that infrastructure, your teaching becomes less efficient, less effective, maybe, depending on, what you're doing, and, things, grade book and attendance and things like that, payroll, just all that stuff, it's just not about education. It's about all that back office stuff that happens too, firewalls and networking and it's a lot. So, you have to have the support, and it looks like you did in order to do all that. And that's awesome. But my question to you, I have two questions. Why did you go G Suite if you were using Microsoft products? And then how did you train all of your staff to use G Suite if they weren't, obviously they weren't familiar with it, but, so how was your training rolled out?
So to answer the first question, yeah, I was brought up on Microsoft products. I still work with Windows, so I'm an expert in Windows Server, Windows 10. I've been using Windows since Windows 3.1 days.
Oh my
Windows
gosh, I remember those days.
Windows 95, Windows
Windows
98,
98, Windows NT.
Windows 2000, Windows XP. I've been Microsoft all my career, and I still manage a Microsoft network at 3 schools that I look after. And immediately when I looked at cloud solutions, I thought, there were 2 solutions that were viable for schools: GSuite for Education and Office 365. And I looked straight away and said, GSuite, no chance, because it's different. It's stuff that our staff don't know. Office 365 just makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's Microsoft, it's Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It's what we know. It's what we're used to. And so it's the path of least resistance, so to speak. It's the one that makes sense. And so I went on a journey of basically trialing on my own the 2 platforms, Office 365 and GSuite for Education. And it was a time when that's when I was given the flexibility to go out to conferences and things like that, to go and learn about how to implement transformation, because at the time it was still a very lonely place to be. I didn't have much of a Twitter PLN at all. My Twitter in the good old days was all about complaining to the local supermarket that you cracked my eggs during the delivery, and so it was just me trying to fight my way through EdTech. And over that year, I evaluated the 2 products, and to my resistance as well, GSuite ticked more of my boxes than Office 365 did. It ticked more of my boxes from the simplicity of management, from the admin perspective. It ticked more of my boxes for, ultimately, I was the one who had to deliver the training. And it ticked all of my boxes from it felt so much easier, so much simpler to deliver the training. And also there was no sort of alternative to Google Classroom. So that kind of immediately won.
That decision was really, that made your decision.
And I was still going through the transition phase of tech versus teachers. So it was still a case of, we were still at loggerheads rather than working collaboratively. And so I was very bullish about my approach. It's like, this is the way forward. This is how we're going to do it. I know best. You just stick to your teaching. Job done. And I highly recommend no one ever takes that approach. And I learned along that journey that, the more you take people along that journey with you, the easier it is for you. And I now regularly deliver GSuite training across my entire trust. After I did Innovate, I became a Google certified trainer for that. That was
just for that reason.
To help deliver that training, because I was doing the training, and there were so many times where it was, I hate Google. What's this rubbish you've brought into the organization? And I turn around and say, just stop, wait a minute. Do you hate Google? Yeah, I hate Google. Hate it, absolutely. So when you were buying your Google didn't like the fact that I hate Google, but anyway. So I say to them, when you were buying your flights for your holiday last year, what search engine did you use? Oh yeah, but that's fine. I don't mind it for search, but no, Google Docs and Google Sheets, none, Slides, don't like it. And then what I realized is I sat down with these people and said to them, right, show me what it is you don't like, and let's see. And you would find it was a case of, I'm being facetious here, but I didn't know how to bold the text or italicize the text. And it's like, look, this is how you do it. And then you'd have that light bulb on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. And then you use that opportunity. It's like, did you also know it could do this as well? And did you know it could do that? And then every conversation at the start would lead to Google Forms, because Google Forms, I would always call my quick win. It's like right now, when you want to find out, when you want to ask the parents, are you happy for little Johnny to go to the park next Wednesday? You print out, send home the slips, and hope for the slips to come back. Did you know you? And then someone has to then collate the yeses and the nos and so on and so forth. Did you know you could do this via Google Forms and get your data immediately? And it's like, really? How? Wow. Well, how much time is that going to save me? And once you started to show them the productivity value that you got out of it, that's when the pieces started to fall into place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like, I always tell people, it's an investment, right? So like if you invest time in the beginning and learn it and then transform, even like you took your IT department and you transformed it. Now, you're talking to teachers and you're asking them to transform their workflow and their tools. So, I tell people it's an investment. You take the time and you learn in the beginning and you change whatever you need to do. And then at the end of that workflow or that lesson or that, unit, you're going to get a return. And the return is time. You get your time back. You get immediate, information. You get everything is digital. You're not spending time at the copy machine, all that stuff. So you get rewarded. It's just you have to put the time in the beginning, and then you get your return later. And they're like, oh, that's true. That's true. But that's all part of a mindset. And that's a part of being a growth
Absolutely.
mindset. And it's a change. People don't like change. People like to stay with what they know and what they feel comfortable with. And, nobody likes change, but unfortunately things change pretty quickly when you're in EdTech. And if you're not changing, then again, you're vulnerable. Whether you're vulnerable because your skills lacking, or your infrastructure, or your whatever it is, if you don't change, you're going to lack somewhere. And that's not what we want to do. We always have to evolve in our profession, whether you're in the IT department or you're an educator or not. It's all connected, like you said. That's that's a big undertaking. That's huge. And I understand that because my mind, I've worked in that area before. So I kind of I can connect to that. And that's, you're talking about users and devices and managing and policies and students and different policies for them. I mean, it's not easy, it's very
there's a lot to
there's a lot
consideration to make.
Yeah. So I mean, and you have to work with a certain amount of money and devices. What are you buying? Who, how many, and licenses and things along those lines. It's a huge undertaking. Well, you should be proud of yourself, because that is definitely something that you would need a team to do. And as long as you had the support somehow or another to make that happen. I mean, I'm kudos to you, Abid. That's awesome. I mean, and then, to convince people to understand why it was important, that's a job in itself. I mean, because that's, you're trying to talk to some people that don't have that understanding, and they don't listen to what you're saying. They don't understand, but they're not listening. So it's to get through to them it's difficult,
Yeah.
So I give you, That's awesome. I give you a lot of credit because that's a very exhausting, tiring effort, and it sounds like you did a great job.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Wow. I mean, it is. It's we all go through some I don't know, some type of experience like that in our ed tech experience or world, and you learn from that, and then it makes you better, and you learn and you just move forward from there. So you could take everything that you've done, and actually you should do a blog post and keep up with your blog, because you would help other people who are in that situation. And I'm sure there's many people that aren't as fortunate and are still in that situation, and that they need help. So you should definitely share your story. That's why I wanted you to come on today, because I knew that I know you're in the IT, and the IT department, and educators and ed tech coaches, we all have to work together. And usually, like in my experience, when I was a technology coach, I was the middleman between the IT department and the educator. I would relate the need from the educators to the IT department. And then, I would train the educators and everything like that. But there's a middleman there, because sometimes IT just don't get it. They don't understand the need. And then they look at educators like, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. Just do it this way, like you were saying. And the coach, I feel like it's the coach's job to kind of come in and, like finesse them a little bit, so that they can understand, the need, and not have that mentality and that perspective. So,
And that's a role that is heavily missing in education. We don't have that ed tech coach role in education in the UK, and so there is direct communication between IT teams and educators, and at the same time opportunity for direct conflict as well.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no buffer, there is no middleman, there is no mediator to sort of sort that. It's a case of, I need this and you need to give it to me. It's a case of, no, you can't do this and I'm not going to give it to you.
Right.
That approach is never going to
it's not going to work. No, it doesn't work. No,
it's about empathy from all sides. At the end of the day, the educators are there trying to do a very challenging job, and likewise so are the IT teams. But what I always say to the IT teams is, remember the industry that you're working in. If you aren't interested in facilitating for the need for teaching and learning, then you need to go and do IT in a different industry.
And that is interesting that you even said that, because most people that I encountered in the IT department, they worked outside. They worked in the business world, and then they came into education, and then they just have no clue. Like, they don't have that concept. They don't have a clue, and that's interesting that you said that, because if they don't have that mentality, then go back to the business world and work, because it's not treated the same way. It's totally different.
Your experience, because my experience has been growing up with, I've only ever worked in education, and so I've only ever worked in IT in education. And the way we were brought up, it was a case of you use EdTech as your stepping stone to eventually, hopefully, getting a job in business in the private sector where you will earn your millions. But use education as the stepping stone. And having done it now for 16 years, I turn around and say, that's the wrong mindset to have. Education needs to be the place where we maybe not earn our millions, but at the same time, we make that our promised land. Why can we not have that success and let's be frank, no one goes into education for the money.
No.
We come to education for the fact that we have the passion for what we do, and we have that concern for ensuring that our children have the best possible start in their life, because ultimately they are our future leaders.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
need to make sure that we give them the necessary tools and knowledge and understanding and empathy as to what is going to make them successful adults when they grow up and they're leaders of society. And so that's why it's it's super important that we're, as IT teams, we're working in education, we have to have that empathy for the industry we work in, and we have to realize that yes, there will be times when you will face challenging educators. Not everyone's like that. Don't tarnish everyone
Right.
with a brush. Um, and just like in any, you go work in private sector in business, you're going to have challenging people there as well. And it's about how you deal with that with the right outcome that will benefit everyone.
And it's so funny because that can make or break you, right? So, like my school district that I'm at now is wonderful. Like the IT department is awesome. They are so supportive, and I couldn't be more thankful. And I'm fortunate. You go to other school districts and they have this is locked down, and it affects the teachers, and then you become like bitter, and because you can't do your job as well as you, or effectively, and it becomes more of an inconvenient, then you don't want to do it, and it shouldn't be that way. It should definitely be a partnership. It should be. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm glad that you brought that perspective in, because I think it's important to share.
And it's interesting that bit you mentioned about blocking, because I'm in a unique position where I don't like to overblock, because at the same time these tools are out there. We've got a big culture in the UK of you must block YouTube, and you must block Facebook, and you must block Instagram, and must block Twitter, and you must block everything that we don't understand how to handle. And with COVID-19 and the amount of stuff we're doing online with Google Meet and Zoom and things like that, and Zoom blocking and Zoom bombing, sorry. And so I was listening to two of my London 19 colleagues, Dave Leonard and Emma Pass. They were talking on Dave's podcast Learning Dust about Zoom bombing and the experience that people have had with that. And there's a culture of snap blocking that, right, we had an unfortunate incident where one of our Zoom sessions got bombed, and therefore block Zoom. We can't use it anymore. And that's like equating to, so one of your children went and graffitied the walls. Does that mean you're going to block pens? One of your children used bad language in the classroom. Are you going to block talking, or are you going to shut the school down because someone said a bad word? We have to realize that there's a world around us where horrible things are happening in the world right now, and we could shield our children away from it. And to an extent, we have to. We have that responsibility for safeguarding our children. But at the same time as well, we have to let them understand the world that we live in. And so Zoom bombing is unfortunate, yes, but simply
make it into a learning experience.
That's
a teachable moment.
That's it. And so empathy has to work from both sides, and so it's wrong for educators to apply blanket blocks, but at the same time it's wrong for IT teams to apply blanket blocks, because unless there's a blanket agreement that yes, this is the wrong thing, this is the right thing to block. So for example, no one's going to argue that we should unblock pornography. No, we understand the harms and we understand the reason why it needs to be, and that's a given. But when there is a tool that brings benefit, so for example YouTube, there is a lot of unproductive stuff stuff that we can do on YouTube, but there is tons and tons of productive stuff that we can do on YouTube as well. And so you don't just block the that resource. You have to work with the resource, because you have to use, especially now when budgets are so low and schools are struggling, you have to use every weapon in your arsenal, isn't it? And every opportunity, you need to grab every opportunity you have to be able to deliver the best possible experience to the children.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it has to be taught in school, like even, when we went to virtual learning, remote learning, and everybody's doing Zoom and Google Meet, the students didn't learn any of that, like etiquette, how do you act? How do you raise your hand? Like they didn't know any of that stuff. So here you have to teach them, and how do you act when you get Zoom bombed, like those are the things that it's called digital etiquette or digital literacy. We need to include a lot of that back into our curriculum as well, so that these kids know how to act when things like that happen. I'm so glad that you came on today, B. You've really given a whole different perspective on, the partnership between, IT and EdTech. And I'm glad that you shared your journey, your digital transformation journey with us, because I think it's definitely helpful, and I'm sure other people can help and listen to it and hopefully can get some good pointers from it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So I'm going to wrap up the show really fast. Let me share my screen. So do you see my Google search engine? Here we go. So if you would like to visit my website, you can go to thesuitetalk.com. That's the SUIT talk.com, and you'll come to the homepage. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, my newsletter. You can also listen to the Sweet Talk on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Google Podcasts as well. If you would like to be a guest on my show, please fill out my guest form here. You can, fill that out and I will get back to you. I am scheduling now for the fall. So I want to say thank you for all of that. If you like my show and you want to support my mission, become a sponsor, fill out my sponsor form as well. The Google Classroom book is out. Stepping Up to Google Classroom, a book for beginners, is out. And it was written by Alice Keeler and myself. It's available on Amazon. So if you need help with Google Classroom, you can always pick that up and, find some great information in there. Jamboard. A lot of people are asking me about Jamboard. I have a Jamboard page here. You can check out my Jamboard resources. And if you have any questions about Jamboard, certainly, let me know, and I will be happy to help. And I'm back. You hear me?
Yep. Yeah. We can hear you.
So that concludes our show. So I want to say thank you again, Abid, for being on. It was a pleasure actually speaking to you. I actually have to do a GEG New Jersey kickoff tonight at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I know you're the GEG Global and the GEG UK. So, kudos to you on that. So I will be posting, updates on Twitter about GEG New Jersey, and I'll tag you.
Absolutely. We've launched so many gigs in the last.
It's awesome.
Weeks, and it is so amazing to see those communities growing and thriving all around the world. Really looking forward to the New Jersey launch.
Yeah, so stay tuned. Woohoo! Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to put my sunglasses on so I can look like a bead. All right, everyone.
There'll be more of that fun to come in EdTech Smackdown 2 in July. So
I can't wait. That was awesome. All right, until next time, I will see you later. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.